Imagine it's 1937 and the world is still clawing its way out of the Great Depression. While over across the Atlantic, Europe drifts closer and closer towards a war. And somehow, Hollywood gives us two films that couldn't seem more different, yet they're asking the same question. One follows a mother willing to sacrifice everything so her daughter can have a better life. The other drops us into a prisoner of war camp, where men from different nations discover that class, humanity, and friendship may matter more than borders. This week, we're diving into Stella Dallas and The Grand Illusion. Two unforgettable stories about sacrifice, dignity, and the invisible walls that separate us. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cinema 100, and this is Stella Dallas and The Grand Illusion.
La Grande Illusion, avec Jean Gabin. Dita Parlo.
Le café est prêt.
Pierre Freinet.
D'un côté des enfants qui jouent aux soldats, et de l'autre des soldats qui jouent comme des enfants.
I never saw her before, did you? Who is she?
I don't know, but I'd sure like to know where she got that paint job. Just needs a new coat. It's not a woman, it's a Christmas tree. And it walks.
Does it talk?
And how? Good?
Delicious.
That's the one there. I heard her say to Jimmy, you ought to see my little girl play tennis.
She must have some little girl.
Will and I are back at it, and we are watching two movies this week that have to do with, well, human relationships seems to be the double feature theme for this one, Will. I don't know if you had a different connector that might be better than that, but when I was thinking about the two things that might, or the things that have the most in common with these two films, that's kind of what I came down to me, was just the way in which human beings interact with each other. What would you think would be a better connector, or do you agree with that?
Oh, I definitely think there's some, I think that's a good one. I think another one here would be class. I definitely think there's some class dynamics going on, especially and clearly in Grand Illusion. But Stella Dallas has some sneaky stuff going on too around class. So
Sneaky is a good word for it, because for me, and I know we always usually dive into our double feature watching experience. I had a good time watching one and an infuriating time watching another one. And I don't know if we will have similar experiences.
okay.
But like, as one of the movies continued to go on, I got more and more frustrated with the movie, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But what was your watching experience like, Will, when you're talking about these two particular movies?
Yeah, watched Grand Illusion first. Had a hard time finding it. Finally found it on a little app called Dark Room that I had to cue you in on. I'm happy that there is a small community that's trying to get older movies watched, because it seems like this Dark Room app is kind of geared towards older cinema. So that's pretty cool. But also it's not a great app. So needs a little improvement. But anyways, besides that, I thought both these movies really were both very good movies. Both were flawed. I liked one a little bit more than the other, and I'm kind of curious to see if we are a little different on these two.
Well, it sounds like for sure one of them we're going to be. I'm curious as to which one you liked more than another. Let's just get to it. So for me particularly, I agree. There's flaws in both movies. I rated one a 4, the other one a 3, and I definitely wanted. I was going to give it a 3.5, but it just really, it just pissed me off, and that was Stella Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah, I found this movie to be a mess. I found it to quite frankly, just be all over the place. I frustrated with it because it's one of those movies where I'm watching this thing and it's like a ball coach watches film, or somebody who's watching film on a recruit that they're going to be potentially going after. I see all these wonderful things in this film. I see all those things that I think this film wants to be. I see all the messages. I feel like nothing's falling short on me, but I'm still frustrated out as far as the motivations and how we get there and the whys, especially when it comes to our main character, Stella Dallas. And
Yeah.
They just don't add up to me to make sense of all of the reasons why she ends up doing the things in which she does. That being said, I think what was her name? It's Stanwyck, right? Barbara
Yeah.
Stanwyck. This is our first go around with her, correct?
I believe so. Yes.
I found her to be fantastic at times,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't an
Mhm.
issue with her. It was an issue in my eyes with the plot, the story itself, and
Yeah.
maybe overall just the script. So maybe it's the writing I have an issue with, because I also enjoyed John Bowles, the gentleman that plays Stephen Dallas. I really
Mhm.
thought they casted perfectly with Anne Shirley, the one that ends up being Lolly, the daughter,
Mhm.
almost to a point of where when it comes to doppelgangers, I had Anne Shirley looks like Barbara Stanwyck because they felt
Yeah.
like they looked so similar to me. Um, I just had such an issue with the writing and the story of this movie. On the other hand, The Grand Illusion, I think there's a lot maybe more relatable things there in the sense when you've got war as an extra in the film, which is
Sure.
great because that makes us more relate to these things that are taking place on screen. It's a little too polite for my taste in the sense of
Okay.
everybody seems to be there doesn't seem to be anybody that has any resentment from one country to the other. They're all
Mm.
seemingly doing their duty, and that's about the only time any sense of confrontation comes in. But like
Yeah.
as far as the overall messages and what they're going for in that, I enjoyed that movie a lot more. Tell me your specifics when it comes to these two, and then we'll start diving into Stella Dallas. Will.
Yeah. I guess. With Grand Illusion, I think that the biggest flaw with the Grand Illusion is that Jean Renoir is really interested in driving home his theme rather than making it fit perfectly into the story, right? So he's more interested in what these types the where the characters come from and how they interact together because of that than he is about making a realistic, like, what it actually feels like to be a prisoner of war, right? So all of these, they're all kind of, I don't want to call them straw men, but they definitely have some caricature to them, right?
Yes.
Which
Yep.
which weakens a little bit of the actual, like, on-screen relationships. I think it really helps with a couple of those, and we'll get into those, at some point, I'm sure. But overall, it kind of gives it a little bit of a it's a little stale in the relationships from character to character. So I'm on board with you there a little bit. But Stella Dallas sounds like I liked it a little bit more than you. I think that comes down to Barbara Stanwyck's and Anne. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name.
Anne Shirley.
Anne
Anne
Shirley.
Shirley.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Their on-screen performances were so good that I ended up at a 4-star for Stella Dallas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I agree with you that if you really kind of bore down into the story, especially in the second act, after you get that 13-year jump from her being a toddler to her being a teenager,
Yeah.
there's some stuff there that if you really wanted to be critical, I think you could get into it pretty good in that second act. So.
Well, and I think we will. We'll bear down on it a little bit. I was curious because I do not have children. You do. And I was curious. And in this case, you have a daughter, but you're not a mother-daughter relationship. Just like any dynamic, they're always a little different, right? They're always a little different. Yeah. But I do take issue with a lot of things that just what we were presented with. It's like, I feel like you're telling me one thing, or I should be feeling something else, or I should have a stronger connection between these two than maybe I do. Because I don't feel like you're actually showing me these things on the screen. So let's get into it, Will, if we can. Let's talk Stella Dallas. Normally we do the chronological order, but Robert got a little impatient, so let's get to it. The movie, Will, is Stella Dallas. Release date, August 6, 1937. Tagline is, a working-class woman is willing to do whatever it takes to give her daughter a socially promising future. I stole that from IMDb. Mm-hmm. I already have an issue with the tagline. This isn't ChatGPT tagline. This is tagline off of IMDb that should be a little bit more, I think, direct or at least spot on with their tagline. Mm-hmm. I get working class is just kind of like where she's at in the poverty line, right? Where she's at, within the income, the financial structure. I get that. I do take an issue with the working part of it because at no point in this movie does she work, correct?
Yes. I mean,
okay, so
literally.
literally, I'm just talking literally. I'm just trying. I'm going to show everything at this problem. I'm not even that obsessed with that. I'm really not. I want to make my case here so that we can talk it. Directed by a guy that I really enjoy, King Vidor. I think it's Vidor. Distributed by United Artists. Runtime of 106 minutes. Starring Barbara Stanwyck as Stella Dallas. Now, Barbara was nominated for this particular film, nominated 4 times overall, and was given an honorary Academy Award, I think, later in her career. John Bowles plays Stephen Dallas. Anne Shirley plays Laurel Dallas or Lolly, whatever way you want to look at it. I gave billing to Barbara O'Neill, who plays Helen Dallas, who shows up a little bit more towards the end. And then Alan Hale, who plays Ed Munn. A guy that I think I'm supposed to not like in this movie, but they don't do enough to make me not like this guy because he carries Stella Dallas's ass for about 13 years. So we'll get there. Letterboxd, 3.8. Rotten Tomatoes rating, 82%, both critics and audience. Initial reactions, we've talked about a little bit. With all the casting being so great, with all the performances being so great, in order for me to be this frustrated, that means I saw something in it. But where my biggest issue comes from, and we can just get into it right now, Will, is, because I want you to defend it and tell me what I'm missing or what you think they were going for. My biggest issue is with Stella, the character. Right from Jump Street, she has an infatuation, and we're supposed to decide in that moment if she's infatuated with Stephen Dallas because she loves him, or the lifestyle in which he could present her, right? It's a little confusing because it says millionaire playboy, wasn't given anything in the paper heading. Did you read that?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm left to think that maybe she loves him because I don't think he has a lot of money, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Were you on board just with that part?
Yes, I gotta admit the headline threw me a little bit because it was his dad, right?
It was his dad that gets killed, but yet nothing was left to him.
Right. Okay. Yep. Did she read that headline?
Or she's got the newspaper, and we're reading it, so she doesn't read it. But like the camera pans down, and it's the last image of that newspaper that we see.
Gotcha.
So
yeah, on board so far.
Okay. So you settled on that you think she loves him or likes him, crush, whatever.
Yeah. Does she know who I guess the big question here would just be, does she know who he is when they are making eye contact in that very first scene?
I think she knows who he is because of the picture. I guess I got here's the sense I got, and maybe this is the thing that sets me up throughout the whole thing, but I get the sense that she saved this paper, that this isn't the new daily report, because he's been working at this new job for a while. She saved this paper, so she's either crushing on this gentleman, and she sets herself up for the 5 to 10 seconds of him passing by every day, hoping that he notices her, in which he seemingly never does, and she's disappointed in that. So I left there thinking, okay, she's must be crushing on this man because she sees this picture, but yet it states he has no money, which the way in which I never feel like he has no money. Do you feel that way?
No.
So, all right, story-wise, I'm already confused, but again, I can overlook these things. My biggest issue with this movie is she seemingly never likes herself. Okay, she doesn't accept or like the fact that she is from a middle class to poverty level laborer family, which stood out to me. We have a mother and a father in the household. We have this dynamic that we don't see a lot. And I thought that was an interesting choice. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. But yet she rejects it because she doesn't necessarily like it. And we don't spend any time really with her and the family where she's like, oh, father, oh, mother, I hate that. I feel this way, but I know you guys try to provide me whatever. Like none of that.
Mhm.
So like I'm left to believe that she doesn't have a good relationship with the father and mother really at all, but I don't feel that way either because here's my point.
Yeah.
I just don't think they commit to anything at all, ever. And I'm left to believe that she's supposed to be this devoted mother. And after she's married into this lifestyle now, they have their marriage. Now she's out. She meets Ed and all this stuff. They get home for the first time. Hell, it takes 5 minutes on camera before she even goes and sees the damn baby. So, like, is she supposed to be, you're setting the plate for me. Is she someone who's obsessed with being a mother and couldn't wait to get back? Because seemingly she didn't really want to get back. And then in the next scene, she's obsessed with being a mother. So, it was messy, dude. It's just messy.
Yeah. There is definitely a lot of mess along the time jumps. I wrote in my little notebook here that I understood why they were jumping so much time. But if you're going to do that, you have to establish what the relationship actually is between each character. So here is where it gets messy because, I mean, from that first scene that they go out and she meets Ed, right?
Yeah.
That's only, a few weeks into her, having given birth, right?
Yeah.
So then
No.
the next scene.
Yes, sorry, you're right. Yes, you're correct. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah. So then the very next scene is what, 3 years later?
3 years later, she's feeding him. Yeah.
So she's a toddler now. So the problem here is King Vidor is asking us to understand that in those 3 years, she has changed, right?
100%.
But if you're going to ask us to understand that, you need to do a better job of making it clear and obvious that she's changed, because then you get all this messiness that you're pointing out.
And I'm, again, still only pointing out the things that I can overlook. I'm like, okay, 3 years in, she's learned the error of her ways. It is what it is. But this entire movie, we end this movie, Will, with her not going to her daughter's wedding. And I'm left thinking myself, what really happened outside of this own woman's imagination and inability to ever accept herself and her place in life or what she is. She has seemingly the best kid that's ever been on screen. This girl has no flaws. She wants to be there with her mother all the way through. And it's just this woman's inability to get out of her own way. And therefore, at the end of this movie, she misses her daughter's wedding. And I'm left thinking to myself, why? Why did she miss this daughter's wedding? And am I supposed to like have empathy for her standing out there? And I have none. I have none. At that point, I had absolutely none. And I had none prior to that, but I thought they were going to bring it back around where she like learns some type of lesson here. But she, the main character, ultimately never learns a life lesson that is redeeming. So it's just a doom and gloom movie. And I'm not sure that that's what that movie was supposed to feel like at the end. Like, I'm not supposed, I don't think we feel at the end of that movie, we're supposed to feel a level of like, this woman didn't figure it out. I think we're supposed to feel bad for her, and class sometimes gets in the way of our thinking. And I just I never got there. Did you?
So this is where the ending kind of falls apart a little bit for me, because up until the ending, everything was kind of adding up still, even though there's some missing parts of the equation. You can kind of still see the math working towards something. And the end kind of turns everything on its head for me, because what it does is it takes Barbara Stanwyck's character, and everything she's done up until this point has been in service of getting her daughter into the upper class, right? And accepted into that stratosphere that she never had access to. The problem, though, is I feel like King Vidor, the movie has been critical of Barbara Stanwyck's wanting the desire to get her into that position, right? To get her daughter into that position. I feel like what the movie is saying is that when you are so obsessed with this idea of raising your level, going up a class, you lose the relationship, you lose the, the connection you have with the people around you. And I think I think he understands what he's doing up until this ending where it feels like he's all of a sudden endorsing the decision for her to walk away from the wedding. Unless
100%.
unless I'm missing something. It could be the case that he's trying to just all the way through, he's trying to present this as like a happy story that the daughter, Lottie, is made it into the upper class, except really what he's doing is he's highlighting this broken relationship and what it costs to get her there. But like you were pointing to here, I don't think he earns that. I don't think there's enough for there to be for us to believe that. So
Yeah, and if you were to like, if I almost feel like if we did a watch party or a reaction party to this and watch this together, and because these scenes that they ultimately lean on to get us somehow propelled to the next part of it that I think is supposed to be those things in which you just talked about, the thing that puts equity into the stakes, you know what I mean, so that we feel sort of something. I think he does a good job for about 10 minutes of this movie where you get a payoff on the train, the build up to, because we finally get some type of resistance. And this is what I mean. At no point until we get to the hotel scene where Stella is in the hotel or in the bed and she gets all fancied up and she walks out and she's overdone it. And now all these young youth of life is basically ridiculing and making fun of her. And she learns about that on the train, but her daughter learns about it, mere moments earlier.
yeah.
Those moments of resistance are the things that make us buy in and feel sorry and make us say, okay, what is the character feeling here? Now, even though maybe I can't relate to this situation, I can accept why she might, the character motivation to say, go live with your dad. Let me go talk to Helen Dallas and orchestrate this new living situation. All that makes sense. Everything prior to that, though, did not make sense to me. And I'll explain why. Because there's no resistance. So here we have this woman who I think overall just constantly thinks she's being unselfish for her daughter, but there's no resistance that makes it make sense for why she's feeling the way she does. For example, at any point did Helen Dallas or Steven Wilson ever make her feel less than for her current financial situation, ever make her feel less than for, I guess there's the slight moment where he's like wanting her to maybe present herself a little differently. But I don't think they lean enough on that because he's contradicting. It just didn't have enough of that. So let me ask this. Outside of her own imagination and those kids up to that point, at what point is anybody making her feel bad for, quote unquote, being in the rags?
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody is. I think it's a fair point. The other kind of the flip side of this coin, right? Her obsession with being in the
Class.
upper class, right? This obsession with class is that she doesn't understand it, right? Like she wants her daughter to have access to it, but she doesn't know how they dress. She doesn't know. She's not paying attention to the fine print, right? She just wants her daughter to find success and move up a level, but she doesn't put in the work for her to have be ready to access it, right? So there is a lot of flaws here. I
had a comp that I thought was interesting. We both love One Battle After Another, yes?
Yes.
When I first watched it, I've watched it now twice, but when I first watched it, I think I was a little critical of the way in which Chase Infinity's character, what I believed her conclusion on Tiana Taylor's character, her mother in the story, the
Hmm.
way in which she felt about her at the end. And after I watched it the second time, I think I was wrong in my initial interpretation of that. I felt like when I watched it the first time that they were saying, almost wanting us to think fondly of Tiana Taylor's character. And after the second watch, I think I was completely wrong on that. Can you still hear me? Oh, I think we lost. We'll pick right up on that in a second. You
Nope,
still
keep
hear me?
going. Yeah, new computer, everyone. Sorry. I have time limits apparently, so I gotta go to bed. Good night. No.
Did your screensaver come on? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Will's got to go into his settings there, make little adjustments.
I
No,
sure do.
what I was just basically saying was my first watch, I felt like they wanted me to think that Chase Infinity and Tiana Taylor's relationship as mother-daughter was not necessarily a clean sweep and everything was pushed under the rug, but like that's kind of how I interpreted it the first time, where they wanted us to think. I thought they wanted us to think more fondly of Tiana Taylor's character.
Yeah.
After the second watch, I'm not sure that was the case. Okay, I think we still are critical of everything that she was as a mother, as a person, but there is redeeming quality there with her mission and the way in which she viewed the world. She was just
Sure.
she had shortcomings, and I kind of picked up on that the second time.
Yeah.
In this particular first watch of this movie, that's how critical I am of Stella Dallas's character, is that I don't think the things that are taking place in her life really ever should motivate her to be the way in which she is. Unless it is the route in which you're talking about, where she herself is obsessed with class.
Mhm.
In that case, then, I want to make the argument, and I am making the argument, that she's not being a great mother because she's getting no resistance from her daughter. What we're supposed to do as parents, I'm not a parent. I could be wrong in this take, and this is where I want to get your point of view. What we're supposed to do as parents is observe our kids and then be critical of ourselves and ask, are we giving our kids enough? And if her daughter, seemingly at every turn by everybody, seems completely content, happy, and over the moon, we get no moments of angst as a teenager, of depression, of unhappiness, nothing but joy from that character.
Yeah.
I just don't see how the obsession of class is still there from somebody whose main goal in this movie is about being a mother.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think you're onto something here. You know, this is the disadvantage, I think, of well, a couple things. The first one is this 13-year jump, right?
Okay.
Some things happened in these 13 years that's allowed Stephen Dallas to essentially give his wife a stipend, have two homes, and he's become very successful in his business, whatever it is he's doing now, which, we don't know because they don't really get into that, which it is fine, but it's just more evidence that they aren't giving us a lot of information here. So in that 13-year jump, clearly there's been a separation. They're living in different states. They're, living in different homes. Stella and Lottie are living in a place where she can go to like a really good school, right? So they are trying to give her advantages, and we don't know what the steps were to get there. So this can sometimes be a good thing, right? When you don't have all of the information, and you kind of have to glean from what you're given to kind of understand how the pieces add up. But a good filmmaker makes sure that those pieces can add up without giving you all the information. So here, what's happening is King Vidor is just kind of expecting us to make some assumptions here, and we can't make those assumptions because there's too many variables. So here, that 13-year jump is really screwing with us, I think, because I do think that something's happened in those 13 years that has driven Stella kind of back into herself. That's made her more reserved. That's kind of scared her. She's scared of the world now. And while she still runs into Ed from time to time, she doesn't go out into the world. She's so obsessed with like making sure her daughter has what she needs, that she kind of loses herself. So that I do think is a good point to make in King Vidor's favor, is that as parents, what can happen is you can lose yourself. You can become, you can go the wrong way and just try to live vicariously through your kids, and then you're losing yourself that way because you're putting too much of it into your child. The other is to just let your child run the household, right? And to let them make the decisions, to let them, we're going to Dave and Buster's tonight. We
Yeah.
went last night too. So, there's ways to lose yourself to your kids. And I think that's kind of what's happened here. But again, we keep coming back to that point that King Vidor's not giving us enough. And I don't think that we understand Stella enough to see that this is exactly what's happening.
Yeah, and I think that's where my biggest issue is that I feel like the movie King Vidor is supposed to be telling me that I'm supposed to have huge empathy for a mother who's going out of her way to do everything she can to make sure that her daughter doesn't feel the classism, right? But I'm not sure that that's being mirrored here, and the reason is because at no point does her daughter feel like she's a lower class, which is supposed to then be the driving factor for why a mother, Stella Dallas, would be embarrassed, humiliated, be alone in a room crying to make those sacrifices to make sure that her daughter never feels those things again, and then all of a sudden becomes consumed or whatever with all these things. Because Anne Shirley's character never feels that, and we never get that. I'm left thinking that there is this obsession with class, obsession with on her own that she can't get away from, and therefore it makes her, in my eyes, maybe not a bad mother, but like over a span of time to miss your daughter's wedding, it makes you a bad mother.
Well, yes, yes. I think ultimately I agree with you, but in her, so here's where it could be a tragedy, right? That King Vidor might be onto something. If Stella Dallas is her brain is so warped in her vision on what her daughter needs that she thinks that being out of her life is actually the best for her, which is kind of what the decision is at the end there. Then maybe what he's saying is, look at what this obsession has brought to Stella. She had a daughter that was damn near perfect, and it was because she was there the whole time. So there wasn't anything wrong with Stella. There was just, she was so obsessed with the idea that she pushed her away because she was worried that she would fall back into, Stella's, her perception of herself.
To me, I think everything you just said, I think we've summed it up pretty damn good. Where I wanted this movie to go was, I thought the best, I didn't write it down and I should have for our quote section, but like I want to bring it up now. And there is a truth to what she's saying. So there's a moment where Lolly's character, or Laurel, is talking to, I believe it's her mother, correct? About yes, every time I go with Dad, and we haven't even talked about Stephen Wilson, and he doesn't get a pass with me. Don't get me wrong. The father doesn't get a pass. I don't care if it's 1937. He doesn't get a pass because essentially he's moved away from his responsibility, which in this case is his daughter, and he thinks that's the best thing for him, which is okay. Maybe they've made that deal, but I don't get the sense that he's seeing her every weekend. The note says that he saw her 3 times in one summer. And as someone who's not a father, and as you are a father, I would assume that your standard as a parent, that would be unacceptable. Is that fair for me to assume?
Sure. Yeah.
So not even touching on him as a parent, because the movie is not called Stephen Dallas, right?
Yeah.
He is what he is. He's great for every aspect that he's in her life, but Laurel says it, he's fun because that's how it's set up to be. And I have a great time there, but I have a different time when I'm with you, Mom, because we've experienced things together, vulnerable together. I don't show those things with Dad because it's all about buying me a good time and leaving after 2 days of the weekend. With you, I'm here all the time. And I wanted that to be the lesson of the movie. I wanted that to be the moment where Stella's character gets it, that her obsession, it almost cost her daughter and chasing her away. But instead of making that moment and changing it, we get this route, which is okay. Not every movie has to be the Hallmark ending. The issue is I just don't feel like the movie was about her obsession up until that point. And if it was, then we can leave the theater thinking, wow, she battled with this classism the entire time. That's what this movie was about. Not really about her trying to be the best mother she can be. It was about her thinking she was being the best mother she could be. But this obsession was the main theme of it. To me, that was like the fork in the road moment for me, that I went from what could have been a 3.5 to 4 stars based on the performances to ultimately, no, this movie failed for me. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think you're onto something. I am in these situations, I try to give the benefit of the doubt as best I can to the filmmaker, because you can always tell when they care when they're making a film. This isn't, I watched Trolls 2 on Netflix the other day, and let me tell you something, worst movie of 2025, little preview for that pod. But you can tell that he cares about what he's doing. So I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt here. And I think what it comes down to is there's just one too many things that don't feel like it adds up to be a great movie. So.
Yeah, I agree. And that's ultimately why I marked it down a little bit. But let's continue on. Usually we get to that part of it, but I had to get it off me, Will, because I really enjoyed Barbara Stanwyck. I really wanted this to be better. I enjoyed Hallelujah with King Vidor. I wanted this to be better. Every performance, the casting, the way it was shot, I thought everything was great. So let's talk modern day remake or recast.
Okay.
I got 2 names for you. So I did not go with I did not recast the
Stephen
Dallas character. I thought the best dynamic of this movie was the mother and the daughter.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. So let me look up the name, because I forgot to write it down, of the girl that I want for the daughter.
Sure. I'll give you mine while we're
please go ahead.
So I've got Carey Mulligan here as Stella.
She came to my mind. She came.
Yeah.
I think she would be a great pick.
Yeah, I think she could kind of capture that, what we really want from this film, which is that dynamic of her wanting to be with her daughter, but also feeling like that's worse for her daughter. And then because I've been watching Stranger Things, Millie Bobby Brown is as the daughter kind of came to mind as well. So
yeah, no, that's a great one, especially because she can play with like age gaps. Like she can look younger and then she can look a little older.
Sure.
I think they do a really good job with that. No, Carey Mulligan was on my short list when I was thinking about this. I went with something that I thought maybe for the remake might be a little bit, maybe an interesting wrinkle that they could add into. I went with Lady Gaga as Stella Dallas, just because when Lady Gaga came onto the scene, I don't think we really looked at her as like this attractive person. Maybe I'm wrong, but she had a clear flaw in the sense of like modern traditional flaw, right?
Sure.
She had this big nose, right? But as with anything, when you get to know someone or even more time looking at someone, you're like, yeah, it's not bothering me. She was also really covered in makeup and stuff. And like when she really removed all that and we just got to see her, it was like, I don't know what you've been afraid of. Like, you're a beautiful woman. You know what I mean? And there is that level of insecurity with classism that could kind of play into the movie. I thought she would do a really good job of showing that vulnerability. And as far as Lolly goes, I don't know if you know this girl. I was introduced to her yesterday for the first time, but I have seen her in other things, but she didn't stand out as much to me as she did in yesterday's movie, which was Song Sung Blue. She plays the daughter. Her name is Rachel. It's played by a woman or a girl named Ella Anderson. Do you know this young actress?
Not off the top of my head.
She just really was way better in this movie about Neil Diamond cover bands. The movie had no business being as good as it was, and it was. And it's because it wasn't about a Neil Diamond cover band. It was about a love story between two people within that. And that's the brilliance of that movie. And I think it ultimately hurts people's perception of what that movie was going to be. I thought it was going to just be fun, but this Ella Anderson really takes Kate Hudson on one for one in a lot of scenes, and she does a really phenomenal job. So I thought she would be a really good kind of recast for that, for those of you that know.
Nice.
Will, King Vidor, we've seen him before in Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Which movie do you like better?
Probably Hallelujah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him since then, and I think that was a 1928 film of ours.
Yeah, I mean, it was pre-30s. I remember we chatted that out the other day when we were talking about best years. So,
what do you remember about Hallelujah versus the way this one was shot? I feel like early day we were kind of critical of certain the way lighting was used or the way sound was used and all these things, but not in Hallelujah.
No.
I guess what I'm getting at is, like, I remember you talking specifically about the shadows and the way he presented that in Hallelujah and used that specifically in the church scene towards the end.
Yeah.
I again just think he's a flawless filmmaker when it comes to the visuals of it. I really I think the shots and the direction and the way he moves the camera, it all made sense to me. I really enjoyed that aspect of the film.
Yeah, really good. It's interesting now that we're kind of chatting about it, to think about Hallelujah, because there's a couple of scenes, right, where they're out in the woods, like, and it's very Sinners-esque. The way, that it's kind of shot. So I'm curious now about whether Coogler is seen that movie and interested in that movie. But anyways, King Vidor is a great filmmaker. I think that's why I've been pushing so hard on this benefit of the doubt, trying to find something for it.
But Robert keeps hitting him with a stick. Look, I'm not giving up on him, and I'm not even moved him an inch off my thing. I need to see more from him, but I was just, again, like I said, everything about this film just felt like, to me, it should have been at a 4, where I end up being at a 3. But let's talk some anecdotes if we can before we move on to our next film of the evening. Barbara Stanwyck stayed in character off camera to make her bond with child actress Anne Shirley feel more genuine. I can believe that. They felt like the nuts and bolts of this entire movie. I said it in earlier about her being the doppelganger here. I thought they looked identical, man. I thought they did a really good job in casting.
For sure.
The final wedding in the rain scene nearly didn't happen due to lightning and water flow issues that became iconic. Apparently they had real issues with because they didn't shoot this part on a set. They went out in real life, and they had one day to get this, and it just was relentlessly happening. So they ended up getting it, but that's what you got. The film's adaptation, of Olive Higgins Prouty's novel was high stakes. Vidor had to balance sentimentality with realism. I didn't realize that this was based on a novel. Where do you think we are in the 30s when it comes to original IP versus adapted screenplay? Do you think we're starting to get more original pieces of work now?
Yeah, I think there's we're going to start seeing more and more of it, but at the same time, a lot of the stuff we've watched has been adapted from theater, right? From
that's
theater screenplays. So I think that's always it's going to be persistent and probably pretty even throughout. If we make it all the way, we'll probably be seeing adapted screenplays the whole time. So.
Yeah, and it really is the snapshot then is the same as it is now. We're still seeing, it always feels like kind of a roller coaster. We have years where you have more and less of, adapted screenplays or less original ideas. And it seems like we're back on the up, seeing maybe the ascension of those original ideas. So it's good for me, for my particular taste. So anything we didn't talk about in this movie, do you want to touch on us giving a pass to the character Stephen Dallas, or is it okay because he's not the main? It's not titled him. Like, anything else that we didn't touch on that you want to touch on?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that 13-year gap kind of hurts us being able to commit to anything as far as like an opinion goes because I think he's concerned about which direction Stella is going with those first few scenes where she keeps kind of letting people into the house that he's not comfortable with, and he's probably had several conversations with her at this point by the time we get to 3-year-old or 2-year-old Lottie. But you go 13 years and you just wonder, like, does he need this for his own sanity? Because by the time we get to Stella, 13 years later, she's got some stuff going on, right?
Oh
She
yeah.
doesn't seem like she leaves the house very much. She's really only making clothes. She runs into Ed a couple times after that. So you just wonder, like, maybe Steven is kind of had to separate himself from this because it was the only way for him to make any sense of his life. So
No,
I don't know. I think I'm giving him a pass there.
okay, and I'll back off on and listen to two men giving another man a pass. I'll back off on that as well too. I got a little bit different vibe on the Stella Ed relationship. Okay, I didn't get the sense that Ed just stops by from time to time over 13 years. I got the sense that they were a little bit more closer than maybe you were led to believe. And the reason I feel that way is just the way in the demeanor in which she and him conversate. Not when he's drunk, but like when he stops by. She's very
Yeah.
calm with him. It feels like, like there's no, hey, how have you been? Haven't seen you in a while. It feels like a conversation you would have with somebody that you see 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
That was kind of my feeling with it, is that, and that's why these moments of like where, now that's my sense of through Stella. Now it feels different with the perspective of Laurel, because every time she sees Ed, she's creeped out by this man.
Yeah.
But again, to the argument of, is this a good mother or not, she seemingly never seems to care about Laurel's feelings when it comes to this man ever. Doesn't care when she's changing, trying to undress her in front of him. Doesn't care when it comes to the mistletoe.
Yeah.
At least not to the extent that you want to see a mother stick up for her daughter when it comes to something that is making her that physically uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
these are just these little moments. Another moment being, I guess to put that to bed, I thought Ed maybe had a little bit more of a role, but maybe not. Maybe I talked myself out of it based on the way Laurel reacted to her, especially if she lives with her all the time. So, how do you feel about Ed's character? Because I don't hate the guy, but he does
I don't hate the character. I didn't really love the actor.
Really? Okay.
I kept thinking about Lionel Barrymore in the Grand Hotel.
Yeah.
And how just perfect he was. He was annoying, right?
Yeah.
But he was kind of the perfect drunk guy.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking about how he would have approached this role. And I just couldn't get that out of my head about, after the second or third scene, I was just like, he would have been a better fit for this role. I don't feel like, I guess it looks like his name was Ed Munn, or Alan Hale is his actual name. Yeah. So I don't know. I felt like the character, there was just a lot to not like about the guy. So,
well, I to your point, I think that's supposed to be the case. I felt maybe it should have been a little bit more, because I feel like if I'm feeling wishy-washy on him, thinking that he could possibly be a good guy, because he does seem to show up, provide help, whatever, has a caring heart for her, does want to be, like, he's never pushy to her. He says, I wish you'd get a divorce and marry me, basically. And she's like, no, I don't think I could love anybody ever again. And he's not overly pushy about anything. So, like, you could say even though he was never really creepy with Lolly either, other than the mistletoe. And that was like the one time where he was just like, because he thinks he's like her uncle. He thinks they're good, like even the time he walked in on her changing, I guess he does say, oh, I've seen you way worse. But again, this guy is like, I think has been invited in her life from early days, and he feels like he's bigger in her life than she is. They call her Uncle Ed.
Yeah.
I just think that should have been more definitive on how we were supposed to feel about him, because I think he's supposed to be annoying, Will. I don't think he's supposed to be endearing like the Lionel Barrymore character, because I think we're supposed to agree with Laurel and Stephen Dallas's character who don't like him.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe.
yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
not sure.
I don't know. Anyways, is what it is. Also, last thing I'll say, and we'll move on, is I did have an issue with somehow the stepmother being the one to share with Laurel that she's going to be living with them now. And apparently, okay, because Stella couldn't do it because she was embarrassed. And Steven he gets a pass, doesn't have to ever deal with anything. So I don't know. It is what it is.
That conversation kind of came up a little bit more organically, though. It felt like. So I don't think it was something. It didn't feel like Steven is like, okay, you know what, Helen, you're gonna have this conversation. I'm not doing it. I'll get the boys to bed. It felt more like they were having a good conversation, and it just kind of came up.
It did, because she started attacking certain things, and she wanted to stick up for it. Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Anything else?
All right. That's it for me.
Let's move on. Our double feature is about World War I. It's a movie about prisoners of war, Will, that literally was a prisoner of war itself. We'll get to that in a little bit. The movie is The Grand Illusion. Release date, June 8th, 1937. Tagline reads, during World War I, 2 French soldiers are captured and imprisoned in a German POW camp. Several escape attempts follow until they are eventually sent to a seemingly inescapable fortress. Directed by Jean Renoir. Distributed by Realization of Art. Runtime, 1 hour, 54 minutes. Starring Jean Gabin, who played Lieutenant I'm going to say...
Michelle.
Yeah, it sounds like Michelle, but it's like, yeah. Marcel Dalio as Lieutenant Rosenthal. Pierre Fresnay as Captain de Bordeaux. And Eric von Stroheim as Captain von Rothenstein. Now, Will, Letterboxd 4.2. I think this is our highest rated movie we're going to watch this year.
Mm-hmm.
Rotten Tomatoes, critics 97%, audience of a 92%. Of the two films... Was this the one that you enjoyed a little more or a little less?
This was definitely enjoyed more.
Okay, me too.
Just way more meticulous, way more like it just made more sense. Everything kind of fit together, connective tissue, all of that stuff just was way more thought out and way more clear so that you could follow along.
No, I totally agree. I feel like, and I stole this from online because I read it in a review, but it makes perfect sense. Sometimes it feels like when you're trying to if you're trying to tell a war story about how it impacts the human psychologically, it is almost best if the war itself is an extra in its own movie, right?
Yeah.
Is in the background, because this movie, what I love about it is it just focuses on the details, and it lingers in these scenes for a long time, and the moving parts are the people, not the camera. Camera sits still a lot, and that's a choice, and I think it's a good choice because we're kind of watching all of these relationships in front of the camera play out, but we kind of get to choose which one we want to follow for those particular moments. I think at the end of this movie, it gets a little lost, as you can tell on the cover here, with the love story aspect, a little bit, not too much. Not too much, but a little bit. I thought this movie was a lot more grounded in what it wanted to be, knew what it wanted to be, and although albeit a little too polite, I think amongst the officers of both parties, I got the point of what he was saying, and I didn't think it was somehow depleted because of that. So. Modern day recast. I didn't modern day recast this only for the fact that I felt like it's kind of hard to do with foreign films, because when we do a modern day recast of like, I guess I just didn't see anybody in those characters because I could see too many people in those characters. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, sure. I didn't think Lieutenant I'm gonna keep butchering that, Michelle and Rosenthal, I didn't feel like their characters were so unique that I could see any one particular person doing it. Did you come up with something?
Yeah, I've got a couple names here.
Okay.
So for Marshall, I went with Charlie Hunnam.
Okay.
Just kind of have that same posture.
Stoic. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got that stoicism to them, and I thought Charlie Hunnam could kind of embody that role pretty good. And then I did two more. So I did Chris Pine as Boldu. Just kind
Okay.
of he's so handsome that he just screams first class, right? It screams he has three castles in France.
Chiseled
So
jawline. Just yeah, he
exactly.
can't help but
Yeah,
be handsome. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then for Rothenstein, I went with Fassbender, Michael Fassbender.
Ooh,
Just
that's a perfect one.
that same just smarter than the rest of the room. And I just thought it was a good fit. So
Fassbender is one of those guys that you're right. Any room he walks into, he doesn't even have to open his mouth, and we're already like, God, that guy's got like 10 more years of education than me. I mean, doesn't it feel that way?
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And I don't understand why. I don't get what makes someone that. I did think as a doppelganger. Well, I'll save it for later. Yeah, I didn't come up with anybody, but those are some really good ones. Let's talk about director Jean Renoir. Do you remember we saw him in? Oh, it wasn't that long ago. I feel like. What was the movie we watched
It
him in?
wasn't. You'll have to give me a second.
Man, I had it, and I had it. We're not doing our job here. That's all
We
right.
are not. That's okay. Give
Oh,
me
it
two
was Crimes
seconds
of
and I'll...
Missouri Lane.
There it is.
We just seen him in
Yep.
that, and we were not overly in love with that. I liked it a little more than you
Mm-mm.
did. You weren't a big fan. Um,
Yeah.
how did he feel this time around?
Much better. I think much more concise in what he was trying to say. I thought that the themes of, I mean, obviously class here is the big one. And I thought what he was doing with the class in the first prison especially was just, it was pretty incredible how clear it was without being forced, right?
Yeah, it wasn't
The
contrived by any means. Yeah,
Yeah, the crimes Monsieur Lang just felt forced the whole time. It felt like he was trying to tell a story over top of his theme, whereas these two just kind of meld together in the Grand Illusion. So I thought he was much more focused this time around.
So one of the themes of him, I guess, in his career, Will, is class over
Hmm.
nationalism. So like this idea that there's no
Yeah,
villains, we're all human beings, and that's kind of the main essential theme that he was showing here. You get
yeah,
the respect amongst the two captains, right?
yep,
And then the rest of the commoners, they kind of show each other respect there. Um,
yeah,
I think by doing it that way, it made it very easy to not directly spoon feed us the classism portion of it, right?
yep,
Because it felt like, yeah, I wanted to ask you this though, because I'm not a great historian yet of things that I probably should be, that I should have paid attention to more in school, and I want to be, and I'm saving it for my retirement, unfortunately, Will, because right now
yeah.
I'm just interested in too many things. So, um, World War One. Clearly, we know World War One and World War Two are very different wars. Um,
Hmm.
World War One was still at the beginning of the 20th century, and I want to kind of ask, where are we with the level of respect um, opponent forces show each other? Is this a good depiction of prisoner of war camps?
I think you said it correctly at the beginning here, where you said it's a little too polite. I think it's a little bit rose-colored glasses as far as this particular the first camp especially goes, because as much as I thought that it worked, I do think there's some scenes where it doesn't make a ton of sense, and that's especially between the German infantrymen and the officers,
Yes.
because if you're in the infantry, you will have experienced some things in World War One that the officers had not, and in particular trench warfare and
Yeah.
how nasty that got. Um, and you'd think there'd be a little bit more contempt here. And even between, All Quiet on the Western Front has quite a bit of this, the tension between the infantrymen and the leadership. So I think that was a little bit polite. I just like that word. It was a little too polite with those relationships.
Yeah,
But
because I wouldn't go as far as to say that they're, because from my understanding of World War One, because it's the Great Trench Battle, right? It's
mhm,
before everything went land, air, and sea. It was all land, and it was way more polite than World War Two, right? World War Two gets all the rules get thrown out the window, and it's
no.
just it's an animalistic war, and compared to World War One, and I remember reading it in a literature book about I forget exactly what battle it is, but like during Christmas time, there was flags waved from both
Mm,
parties' trenches, and they met in the middle and shared a
mhm,
night of just they shared each other's foods and
mhm,
stories and shit like that as best as you could with the opponent, with a foreign language, and they called
mhm,
peace for the night. So you
mhm.
wouldn't do that in World War II. So like I
Sure.
do give Jean Renoir the benefit of doubt here, because there is a lot more of that in World War One. I don't think it's to
Yeah.
this level, but
Right.
I
That's
think
yeah.
it doesn't hurt the movie for me because I at least know that existed. So
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
let's move on. Some anecdotes, though, if we can. Will The Grand Illusion was banned by the Nazis after Goebbels called it cinematic enemy number one for making the enemy too human. Not because of the way in which it showed the Germans being so bad. It's because it showed them being too human, Will.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's classic German exceptionalism. I mean, that's what the Nazi Party is all about. So,
100%, 100%. So I kind of alluded to it at the beginning of when I talked about and when I introduced this movie. I said that this movie is about a prisoners of war, literally was a prisoner of war itself. And here's what I was getting at. So during World War II, this movie was seized, and
mm,
it was into the wrong hands, as you know, in the enemy territory. And it wasn't until things got settled years later that it was given back. So at
mm,
some point in time, this movie itself became a prisoner of war, which is just a fascinating
yeah,
anecdote, I think. So,
it is.
okay, well, important scenes or anything from the plot that we need to focus on that maybe helped shape this movie to a place where we liked it a little better, or maybe not. How did you feel about, they seemingly put a lot of focus on this hole that they were digging and the
Hmm.
idea that they were going to escape at some point, and we don't really get any escape attempts except for the one that ultimately is
Hmm.
successful. So I want to ask you two questions. One, did should we have got a few more, um, or at least utilize that attempt that they were trying to
Mm,
do, which we ultimately don't get to do? Um,
yeah.
and two, how did you feel about the lengths in which the entire party was willing to go to so two men could escape?
Mm. Yeah. First, one of my biggest notes about the film was we spent 10 minutes too long in the first camp, and we were 10 minutes short in the second.
Second camp.
And I think that kind of explains my answer to this question, in that we shouldn't have seen an escape
Okay.
attempt in the first, because I think the escape from the first camp, it kind of, it turns this movie into something it doesn't want to be, which is
Okay.
an escape movie.
Yeah.
And it's not really interested in that escape, because I mean the theme is essentially we can't escape the war, the class warfare, right? We can't escape it. Even when there's friendly relationships, even when people are nice, what is the thing that Ruffenstein says about Bordeaux? It's like, you could lose, all three of your you could lose all three of your castles and you'd still be just fine. So it's,
Talking about status, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think that's what the movie's concerned with. So that's why I kind of feel like if you put any more time, and we probably put a little bit too much time into that first camp, you're losing more of that second camp, which is where I feel like the most interesting stuff is happening. So yeah, I think that throwing another escape attempt in here kind of defeats the purpose of the movie.
I love it when I have like aha moments in real time and you help me get there because I totally I totally missed it. Like, yeah, the movie's called The Grand Illusion, Robert. You're right. They can't. They can't. The whole point of it is that there is no escape. There is no escape. And which does make me ask the question of what is the overall final message you think being said at the end with the title of the movie and what we ultimately see these two guys that do successfully make it to Switzerland? Is there just more trouble up ahead that we don't know about? Is it one more battle after another that we don't know is coming? Or are we supposed to get a sense of hope at the end of there? What do you think is the main message?
I don't think there's supposed to be hope here. I think it's more like it's one battle after another. It's you made it to Switzerland, but what's next? Like when you get back to France, are you just going to get thrown back into the machine?
The system.
If
Get
you're
back
not
out there, boys.
Exactly. So that's what I think he's trying to say is like the illusion here is escaping the conflict of class warfare.
Yeah, I would have a couple things I wish they would have done. I wanted a little more confrontation amongst the soldiers, just a little bit, the opposing teams. But again, nothing really made me think too harsh about it. I also would have liked it if they played with the war, because I didn't really fully understand this because we weren't around at that time. But like, I think there was this sense of nobody believed the war was going to last as long as it did, right? Seemingly, it wasn't until maybe like year 2, 3, or 4, whatever, where they're like, this war doesn't feel like it's ever going to end. But I think initially, they're like, oh, the war can't possibly go that long, right? There's a comment made in the middle of this movie. So is that kind of the general consensus, you think, amongst people, is that war doesn't take that long? Because I think in our modern time, we wouldn't think war would be over quick ever. Like, we only know it to last 15, 20 years, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I think there's probably a little bit of hope in the rank and file that is like this war can't keep going on like this. Like there's no way that this is going to last any longer. I mean, I've lost my entire battalion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many deaths in World War One. And I can't, at any point do we find out what year it is? I feel like there's a news clipping or something. Maybe it's right around the time when the Dusseldorf, I think the village fell, that something comes up with the time. But I think if I remember correctly, it's only like 1916, which puts this in year 2.
Right.
So smack dab in the middle.
Yeah, I think there was one quick reference to the time. I'm not sure if we got a direct year or a direct something, but there was like one reference that I kind, because I had the same thought as you.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, I guess I'm a little lost now. But I think at the end of the day, I'm most interested in the second act of this film, because in the first act, I mean, up until the isolation scene, I think what we're getting is kind of a slow paced film that's really interested in the character. And once we get to the isolation, it starts to be about the relationships between the characters. So I think that's where it really kicks off for me. So
yeah, a couple of things I thought they did really good in Act 1 was when they showed, I forget the vaudevillist actor digging in the tunnel and suffocating and pulling that, and it lands on a pillow and they're too busy looking at something else. And there's real moments of tension there where you're like, oh, is this guy going to die? What is going to happen? I thought they did a really good job with that. A really great moment when they were dressing up as women, or the woman dressed up as a woman, and he comes walking in, and they're all like, they just haven't seen anything that even resembles a female. It was kind of a weird scene prior to that, the way they're all touching and like because you didn't really know what they were going to do with this stuff, I guess. But I guess to a certain degree, it makes sense. You know, you're away from it for so long. So, Interesting. Other anecdotes here, real quick. The grand illusion isn't the glory of war, but the belief that the borders and nationalism matter more than the class and shared humanity. Opposite of that, sorry. Sounded like I lost you. It got silent there for a second. Anyways, I feel like with this movie, in the second act, when we get to the point where we have that conversation between the two captains, which I think is really important to have, because he keeps the one captain on the French side. It's really bothering him. Why do you keep singling me out? You know, it seems like that question's been weighing on him. And the guy tells him, because we experience things differently than they do. And I just thought that you're right. This movie, without being so in your face, maybe it just lends itself to classism easier because military rankings and all those things. But because of that, I do think you can pour it on and make the mistake. And I don't think Jean Renoir does that at all. So.
No, I think it's kind of brilliant to place this within the military like this, because it does allow for that natural rank and file to exist without having to even think about it. Like when you think military, you think of rankings. You think of how many stars does that general have, right? So that I thought it was a brilliant move to kind of place this with so much emphasis on that rank in the military.
How do you feel about the essential, once they do escape, and then we get to the German lady who takes them in, and ultimately we get to the love story portion of it. Where does this movie go for you once we get there? I don't think it's a problem, and there's just a little. They focus a little bit on his love, maybe just a tad bit too much, but not enough. Like I think I get it. Like I think you're gonna fall in love with anybody that looks like her, and you have access to at that point. So.
No, I think the third act fades a little bit. I don't think it falls off a cliff, right? It's
that's fair.
I think that he's still kind of pushing through the main theme here, because she's another commoner, right? She's just another person that lives on the hillside who is trying to do the right thing, right? She's just trying to do the right thing, which is help these two people in need. And through those acts of kindness, through, a morally good decision, that's when our main character, Marshall, starts to fall in love with her, right? It's her not ratting him out when the German soldier comes to the window. And it's her just going about her every day like this is just the natural thing to do. This is living your life. Is the natural thing to do. And I think we're supposed to, in this moment, kind of through Marshall, fall in love with her and the idea of good. Yeah. And I think it works really well. I'm curious about, I guess I'm just a little curious about like the stakes of that second act and the escape, and then kind of coming to this after just naturally feels a little bit like a letdown.
Yeah, to me, I agree. No, I agree with that. And a couple of things that maybe, and I asked the question about, would all these men be this motivated to get two people to escape? I don't know. Maybe there's the camaraderie, and maybe there's like this idea of like, if I do this, it will come back around for me when it's my time. Maybe. And they don't go out of their way to make us feel that way one way or the other. And I don't think they should. It's not the point. But I do, I'm nitpicking, and I'm asking the question. I also nitpick a little bit on whether or not the French captain, Captain Bluto or whatever his name is, whether or not once he knew that the two had escaped and they had gotten their 5-minute head start, whether or not he wouldn't just come back down. Whether or not he would keep going to ultimately take his life, because they talked. There's this great line, and maybe it's the point of the line when he says, "Duty trumps respect," right? Like we still have to do our job. And in that moment, Rothenstein does his job. So, like, I think maybe that was the point of that scene. I just don't know that once we knew they were gone, because maybe I just come back down. And the reason I say that, again, their perspective is this is awful because they only know World War I. They don't know World War II exists, right? They don't know how good they have it. So that's easy for me to sit here in Monday Morning Quarterback this situation and say, hey, man, you've got it pretty good right now. You know what I mean? Let's just wait for this war to be done. You get to go back home and then figure out your issues. But what do you think? You think he ultimately goes too far, or does he want to die? What's being said in that scene?
Well, I think there's a little bit of it's interesting. I'm still kind of working out what the white gloves are all about. Like what?
Go ahead.
What's the point? No, I was just gonna say, what's the point of the white gloves?
I think it's just when you get white gloves and you got to keep them clean, and it's like dying with your whole costume on. Whatever. I think that's just the whole point. It's his status. It's every part of him. It's every facet, every pin. That's what I think it was to me, and that's the way I took it. So
no, I think you're right. I think he's distinguishing himself in the moment by wearing the white gloves as being kind of superior. I think he's still, even though he's a good person, he can't help but
participate in the class.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, he says his dying words are essentially, "I can't believe I'm dying as a commoner." Like, and that's some powerful stuff, because this guy, even though he does a good thing, he can't escape where he comes from and who he is. So, and it's, there's some fascinating stuff going on here for sure.
Marischal says it when he's talking to, the Jewish, Rosenthal. When he's talking to him, he's like, I'm glad I'm here with you because I like Captain, but he feels stale, right?
Yep.
So Captain does a really good job, and I think that's part of the gloves too. Like I think a lot of it has to do, like, there is a bit of heroism there of the buck stops with me. I'm the responsible one here. Don't get it confused by anybody else. Look at me. I have the white gloves. I have the status. I'm the one making these decisions. But you're right. To have those be your dying words, we're projecting what we think he is because he did a heroic act. He might be just the whole time thinks he's better than everybody else, and yet he knows that in order to motivate men, you can't treat them that way. So
sure. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting conversation on two different movies there, Will. Anything we didn't touch on with the second one that maybe you wanted to flirt with, or did we hit it all, you think?
Well, there's one scene I want to bring up that I think is maybe the most brilliant scene of the entire film, and that's the train ride to the second POW camp, because they go by 13 other officer POW camps, and that just kind of gives you it's another small thing that like distinguishes the difference between the the regular POW camps, which have hundreds and hundreds of people, and the officer POW camps that only have a dozen or so people. It's like, hey, like, we understand that you guys are officers and you're better than your infantrymen, so we're going to split you up into 14 different camps rather than just throw you into the common POW camp. So I thought that was a really brilliant kind of way of like transitioning to the next phase of the film while also telling us something along the way. And I just want to make sure I mentioned it.
No, that's great. Went over my head completely. Not the fact that I realized that we're going through all. To me, I was thinking more about the scale of war and just how big these things are. But you're right. That's what it is, because when they get to their final prison of war camp, they almost don't know where anybody's at. They're like, hey, are we your only guests?
Yep.
And they're being treated so well, So
Exactly.
it is an interesting take, and I think it's the right one. Ultimately, I think trains were the best scenes of both movies then, because in Stella Dallas, the best scene in that movie is the way in which they play with the levels
Yep.
of the daughter and the mother, and they overhear. I'm not 100% sure why those girls are on that train. I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
So
Not
that
sure.
part was a little confusing.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it would be better if maybe it hadn't moved yet. I don't know. They're on there. It's a part of the problem, but it's the way in which I think that's the part where we feel the most in the movie, I guess is my point. So,
Yeah. Yep.
all right, Will, let's get the quick hitters.
Okay.
Will, anything as far as quotes from both? I think we kind of mentioned a couple. I really enjoyed the you mentioned the one about, I can die, you can lose all your castles, and you're still going to have your status. I think that was a powerful quote from there. And my favorite quote from Stella was the one in which Anne Shirley's talking to Barbara Stanwyck's character and talking about, I don't know what we call it, but it's just a different type of time. And that resonated with me more because a lot of times, it is something when you go through hell with somebody and how that makes you feel closer to them. And how that you can't cheat that with no amount of money, no amount of good time, whatever. So
Right.
I thought those quotes were the best.
For sure. Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to mention from Grand Illusion would have been, I think I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but at some point can't remember the character, but he goes through and he says tennis courts are for playing tennis. And he said, rich people acquire land because that's what they do. And I just thought it was almost like making the rich person as much a product of the system as any other person in the system. And I thought that was kind of just an interesting quote. So there's one from Stella Dallas, just trying to get to it. It's when Stephen essentially is like, all of these things are unimportant. The only thing that's important is what becomes of us. And I just thought that was really kind of a poignant way of saying, like, I don't care about any of this other stuff. All I care about is you. And it wasn't enough for Stella. So thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and I think, again, that lends more credibility to my argument because he ultimately goes back on that statement a little bit after they're married, after she's kind of acting out a little bit. And he says, okay, maybe I do need you to act a little more like I want you to rather than be yourself. Maybe, I didn't like that he kind of, because the whole movie, he's pretty steady, right? He's a pretty consistent with his morals, the way in which he treats everybody. He's calm demeanor. He troubleshoots well. He's simply there to solve a problem. And even when he comes across Ed, he never treats him with disrespect. He never goes and shows his emotion too much, even though we can see on his face what he's feeling. So that little part to me was a little inconsistent, just going back on that quote.
Sure. Yeah.
Hard-hitting questions. I have one. The character that was in the hole digging, no way that little makeshift can... No wonder he suffocated. Did you see how short that makeshift cans were?
Sure did.
That guy should have suffocated 20 minutes prior to. They showed him way deeper in that hole than where those little 7 cans were stacked together.
They're supposed to get out to the courtyard. That's got to be 50, 60 feet at least.
At least. Yeah, and where are you hiding that when...
Foot.
100%. Where the hell are you hiding that when they come into the thing? No way.
Oh, that's funny. The only hard-hitting question I have one is super goofy. Did squirrels have different barbers during the war? That squirrel looked like got struck by lightning. That poor thing was getting tortured on set. Maybe we shouldn't laugh about this, but no, I was just thought that one was funny.
It was funny. I want to show you if I can get his picture to come up. So my doppelganger for... Okay. Oh, it's not going to come up. Oh, here it is. So my doppelganger for the Grand Illusion. Have you ever seen Home Alone 3?
Yeah, that's a long time.
Scarlett Johansson that's like her debut movie, I think. It's one of her
Okay.
early ones. She's like the
Okay.
daughter in that. Anyways, I thought the guy that played Marischal, and the guy that played in Home Alone 3 was one of the bad guys. His name's Oleg Krupa. It's all I could see. This is not what he looked like at the time, but like
Yeah.
can you see
Okay.
a little
Yep.
bit? Okay.
A little bit.
I'd have to
Yeah,
show
I
you
see
a
it.
picture of Oleg Krupa when he was in that movie, but man, they were spitting images at that time. So
Gotcha. No, that's a good one. I have Marshall kind of looking a little bit like Kiefer Sutherland, like a younger Kiefer Sutherland.
they've got kind of a similar
Yeah,
face.
yeah. So that's the only one I had from the movies tonight. So
Should these movies have been drafted in hindsight? I'm going to say Grand Illusion, yes. I'm going to say Stella Dallas, no.
okay. Yeah, I'm not that severe on Stella Dallas. I think losing the performance that we get from Barbara Stanwyck and sorry, I can't remember her name now, but Lottie, both of them I thought were very good in this and worth the watch. So
Anne Shirley. How old do we think Anne Shirley is at the time of this movie? Because they did a really good job of making us think she was 13 and then making us think she was, 20, 21?
yeah, yep. She's got to be, I would imagine she was 20-ish, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Is this a rewatch, scene study, or forget it? I think the one is a scene study. I think there's scenes to be studied from both, actually. Would you rewatch any of them?
Yeah, I think I would rewatch A Grand Illusion.
Okay.
I'm interested to see where Jean Renoir goes from here, because I do really like the theme of class and race, and he's definitely concerned with class, and I'm kind of curious if you rewatch this with all the rest of his movies, how that kind of goes. So,
Well, I'm going to give you this next one then, and I'm going to ask you to fix it from what'd you rate Grand Illusion? 4?
4.5 actually.
You give it 4.5. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, what
Yeah.
makes it a 5? Fix it in one move.
It really comes down to taking 10 minutes out of that first act and putting it into the second act, and we get 1 to 2 more scenes between the captains. I think if that relationship, if we understand those two characters just a little bit better, this movie really firms up its ideas on class.
I agree. I would have liked a little bit more confrontation, or not just maybe just the sometimes when you are, well, we see it all the time with political leaders, like all the bullshit that comes out of political leaders' mouth. We just got the the Venezuela war right now, and then you get all these responses, and some you kind of interpret as like, okay, that's the political answer. Okay, that was somebody's real response, at least how you feel, right?
Yeah. Sure.
But the art of navigating what to say, not to lose face, the art of the conversation. It was something that we broke down in one of my film study classes. It was great. It was 2 men in a bar. There was both people smoking a cigarette. There was one ashtray. And it was the power struggle over the ashtray, and how you broke down somebody, how they would block that. And one of our assignments was to block the scene, and then we'd go out there and we would act it. And when and how aggressively did the ashtray move back? Was it subtle? Was it aggressive? That's an art form. It really is. The art of the conversation. So, like, I would have liked to have seen maybe confrontation amongst language barriers, amongst pauses, amongst just connotation, the way in which the two captains talk to each other a little more, but ultimately never lose that level of respect for each other. But they know they have to talk to each other this way.
Yep. Sure.
So.
No, 100%. That's a great point.
All right. What other movies did it remind you of? I had 1917 for The Grand Illusion.
That's good. I All Quiet on the Western Front, definitely thought about that a lot. I thought about Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows. The second Robert Downey Jr. There's a scene in that takes place kind of right before the cusp of World War I, that where they're kind of out in the field and the guns are kind of firing at these guys, and it just had a very similar like feel to it, and
Okay.
I just came into my mind. So for Stella Dallas, I had a couple too. Lady for a Day. I thought there were some similar themes going on here with Lady for a Day. Obviously, I think we liked the Lady for a Day a little bit better than this one. But the other one that I thought of was Requiem for a Dream.
Oh, that's
Um,
an
in
interesting one.
it
Okay.
in particular, Ellen Bernstein's kind of like thread and how she just becomes obsessed with this idea of like uh getting into shape and winning that, winning I can't remember exactly what the contest is she's trying to win, but she just becomes obsessed with it, and there was a little bit of similarities there, especially with Stella in the second act where she gets all dressed up and is like thinks she's gonna be hot shit and she realizes she isn't. I
Yeah.
thought they kind of had some similar themes going there.
I It made me think of one of your favorite Sean Baker films, right?
Oh,
Florida Project, right? Isn't that his
okay.
name?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it made me think of the Florida Project a lot, where the mother can't get out of her own way sometimes.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to shoehorn another response here, mainly so I can get to a soapbox of something else. But I hate when I go to Letterbox thinking I'm going to see something, and it is not reflecting what I'm feeling. And
Okay.
I saw Song Sung Blue over the weekend. Granted, I went to this movie just for something to do. It was the fourth movie that we've seen in 10 days. We wanted something to do. We're like, I said, look,
Yeah.
I trust everybody that's in this movie. I'm a Craig Brewer fan from early days. Black Snake Moans.
Mm.
Okay. He also did Hustle and was it Hustle and Flow or Hustle?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He also did that movie. Now, he hasn't done a lot in 10 years. Okay. But
Yeah.
those are the movies of 20 years. Those were when we were in high school. Those movies came out. I
Yeah.
really liked Craig Brewer. He felt different at the time. He did this movie. In this movie, when you see the advertisement, you think it's a movie about a Neil Diamond cover band.
Yeah.
It is, but it's a love story and how it gets there. And it's overly melodramatic. But what I love is when I did the research on it, a lot of the things that you think didn't happen actually did. And he had to put them in the movie because of that. And because of their real life true story, it does feel at times a little bit contrived, but nonetheless, it makes you feel something. And I went there and people are shitting on that movie. And it pissed, no, time out. They're not shitting on the movie. Every review I'm reading is how great the movie is, but they can't get out of their own way and they can only give it like a 2.5 stars or a 3 stars. It's like, you just gave me a whole review about how good this movie is, but then you rated it poorly. That pissed me off. Giving it to Stella Dallas, I thought more people were going to dislike this movie. Now,
Yeah.
people are rating this movie higher by telling me how bad it is. So I don't understand when the world doesn't reflect what I think is happening. So that's my soapbox.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Gotcha.
that's fill that into hot take somehow. Anything else for the working order, Will?
Not for me.
Not for me. What do we have coming up next? I think that's the end of 1937.
It is. So, sounds like we'll be doing one of our mini episodes, getting the
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 Oscars.
Oscars, yeah, for 1937 done. Not sure what we're gonna. There was a lot of decent movies this year. Nothing really stood out other than Make Way for Tomorrow. So I'm curious if that's gonna be a little heavy on our on our ballots, but and then we'll have our draft for 1938. One more year until we get to 39.
Dude, I can't wait for 39, and I'm hoping 38 really surprises us because I think it has the potential to do that. So,
Yeah.
you guys know where to find us. As always, like you heard on the front end of the show in the little pre-trailer that I put up, Spotify, YouTube, go to those channels, subscribe if you can, follow us, hit that follow link if you can as well. Instagram, Cinema 100. That's the same thing. You're going to find us everywhere you go. So we'll see you guys on down the road. Keep watching movies.
All right. We'll see you.